My wife, Sarah, had never been one to ask much of me. We had been married for 5 years, and in that time, I'd always prided myself on being a supportive husband. But when she begged me not to attend her sister's wedding, something shifted in the air. Her request was strange, almost desperate, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was off. "Please," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want you to go." I stared at her, trying to understand. The wedding was only a few days away, and she had been acting distant for weeks. But this request, was a new level of discomfort. It wasn't like her to be so insistent about something as trivial as a wedding. I'd been invited, after all, and it was important to her family. Why would she suddenly want me to stay away? Why? I asked, unable to hide my confusion. "It's your sister's wedding. I thought you'd want me there with you." Her eyes darted away from mine. She shifted uncomfortably on the couch, her fingers nervously tapping the side of her glass. I watched her, trying to catch any hint of honesty in her expression, but all I saw was hesitation. I could tell she was hiding something. Her usual warmth and openness were missing. "It's just, I don't want you there," she finally muttered. Her words were strained, like she was forcing them out. "Please, just trust me on this." Trust. That word hit me hard. We had built our entire marriage on trust, hadn't we? And now, with just one simple request, she was asking me to blindly trust her. But something in my gut told me that wasn't enough. This wasn't a request, it was a plea, one that went beyond the normal boundaries of their family's drama. I felt a sinking feeling in my chest. There was no explanation, no reason that made sense. Sarah wasn't a woman who kept secrets. At least, she hadn't been until now. The more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just a preference or a family squabble. "You're being weird," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I don't get it. Is something going on? Why don't you want me there? This is a big event, and it's important to you." She gave me a forced smile, but her eyes betrayed her. They were filled with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Fear? She looked like she was about to say something but stopped herself, biting her lip in a way that I hadn't seen in years. "I just don't want you there," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "Please." I stared at her, still searching for some sign, some clue that might explain this strange behavior. I knew her well enough to know that something deeper was eating at her, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I had always prided myself on being in tune with her needs, understanding her moods and desires. But right now, it was like we were strangers. The gap between us felt wider than it ever had before. She stood up abruptly, as though the conversation was over, and walked into the kitchen. I stayed in the living room, trying to piece together what had just happened. It didn't add up. There had to be something she wasn't telling me. A part of me wondered if I should let it go. Maybe she was just nervous about her sister's wedding and didn't want me there to take attention away from the day. But another part of me couldn't shake the nagging thought that there was more. Maybe this was a sign of something bigger, something I didn't want to acknowledge. As I sat there in the silence, I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I couldn't ignore the growing suspicion in the back of my mind. I wasn't a paranoid person by nature, but Sarah's strange behavior was starting to feel like a puzzle I couldn't solve. Her request, her odd demeanor, it was like a crack in the foundation of our marriage. I had always trusted her completely, but now I was unsure. "Are you sure everything's okay?" I called out to her, hoping for some reassurance, but there was no answer. Only the soft clink of dishes from the kitchen. I couldn't let this go. I needed to know what was really going on. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was overthinking things, but deep down, I knew there was something more. Something hidden beneath the surface. And if I didn't figure it out soon, I feared I might lose the one person I thought I could trust above all others. The day of the wedding arrived, and I still couldn't shake the unease that had settled in my chest. Sarah's words kept echoing in my mind, each repetition twisting my thoughts further. "Please don't go." It wasn't like her to be so adamant, so secretive. I had told myself I would respect her wishes, but as the time for the wedding drew nearer, the weight of her request felt like an invisible force pushing me in a direction I didn't want to go. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at my phone, wondering if I should just stay home. The thought of not being there for her sister seemed wrong, but so did defying her. As I mulled it over, my fingers itched to text her, to ask her what was really going on, but I held back. I didn't want to come off as obsessive or paranoid. She'd asked me not to go, and I should have trusted that. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. In the end, I made the decision to go. I wasn't sure if I was doing it out of defiance, or if it was because I simply couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Whatever it was, I couldn't sit at home, waiting for her to come back from the wedding with no answers. When I arrived at the venue, I felt like an outsider. The crowd buzzed with excitement, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being disconnected from everything. I spotted a few familiar faces, family members and friends, but none of them seemed to notice the tension that had been building within me since Sarah's request. The wedding ceremony unfolded like any other. The bride walked down the aisle, the vows were exchanged, and everyone clapped at the end. But for me, nothing felt the same. I was trapped in my head, caught between the celebration and the gnawing feeling that something was terribly wrong. Throughout the reception, I kept an eye out for Sarah, but I didn't see her at first. Her sister, Claire, was the star of the show, and I could tell Sarah was trying to blend into the background, avoiding attention. I caught her for a moment across the room, laughing with a few of her cousins, but the moment our eyes met, she quickly looked away. My heart dropped. Was she avoiding me? Or was there something more to it? It didn't take long for me to start noticing things. Her interactions with Claire were off, too rehearsed, too controlled. The way Claire would touch Sarah's arm, the way they whispered to each other when they thought no one was watching, it was subtle, but it was enough to stir suspicion in me. I knew the two of them were close, but this was different. There was a distance in the air, a coldness that hadn't been there before. Then I noticed a man who kept glancing at Sarah. He wasn't someone I recognized, but his eyes lingered a little too long whenever she was near. Every time she looked away from him, he seemed to adjust his position, as though trying to stay within her line of sight. That night, when Sarah came home, the tension between us was palpable. She stepped through the door, her eyes avoiding mine, as though she knew I had been waiting for her. I stood up, my heart pounding, ready to confront the storm that had been building all day. I had seen enough, felt enough, to know something was wrong. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly, though I tried to keep it calm. "Why did you want me to stay away from the wedding?" She froze at the question, her face draining of color for a split second before she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "It was just too much, I guess. I didn't want you to be uncomfortable," she said, though the words seemed rehearsed, too rehearsed. "No," I replied, my voice growing firmer. "I don't buy that. Something happened today, Sarah. I saw the way you were with him, the way you kept avoiding me. And that guy, what was going on between you two?" Her body tensed, and for a moment, I thought she might bolt. But instead, she let out a long, shaky breath and slumped against the wall. "You don't understand, do you?" she whispered almost too quietly for me to hear. I stepped closer, my heart racing. "Then make me understand. What the hell is going on?" She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath before speaking again. I've been seeing someone else," she confessed, the words barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep it from you anymore." The world around me seemed to stop. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, my mind struggling to process the simple, brutal truth she had just laid out before me. I didn't know how to react. Anger, confusion, pain, all of them hit me at once. But the one thing I felt more than anything else was betrayal. "How long?" I asked, my voice hoarse, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "About 6 months," she replied, her eyes now filled with guilt. "It started with just small moments. Things I should have noticed, but I didn't. I was unhappy, and he paid attention to me in ways I felt I wasn't getting from you." She paused, her breath hitching as if saying the words made the reality sink in. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. I couldn't speak at first. The anger I felt wasn't even enough to break through the numbness that had taken over my body. 6 months. 6 months of lies, of hidden messages, of shared moments I would never get back. My mind kept racing over every small detail I'd missed, every small crack in our relationship that I had ignored. "So, you've been lying to me this entire time?" I managed to say, my voice rising in frustration. "This whole time, you were seeing someone else and you couldn't even tell me? You couldn't come to me and say something wasn't right?" "I know," she said softly, her eyes tearing up. "I was scared. I didn't know how to fix things between us, and I didn't want to hurt you. But I realize now, I've hurt you more than I ever could have imagined." I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to yell, to scream at her, to make her feel the weight of what she had done. But I also wanted to collapse in a heap, to escape from the crushing reality that my entire world was falling apart. Instead, I stood there, paralyzed by the realization that everything had changed. "Who is he?" I asked, unable to stop myself. She hesitated, her lips trembling. "It's someone I've known for a while. It's Claire's friend, David." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. David. I had met him only a few times at family gatherings, always polite, always friendly. But now, knowing the truth, I felt a surge of disgust. The same man who had been eyeing Sarah at the wedding, the one I had seen whispering with her, was the one she had been with. "I can't believe this," I said, my voice a mix of disbelief and betrayal. "You've been sleeping with him behind my back, and you think that's just something I can forgive?" "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said quickly, her voice breaking. "I don't. But I want to be honest with you now. I know I've destroyed everything, and I don't know how to fix it. I never should have lied. I never should have." "Stop," I interrupted, my chest tightening. "I don't need any more excuses, Sarah. I don't need to hear how sorry you are. What you've done can't just be undone with a few words. It doesn't work like that." She collapsed onto the couch, her face buried in her hands. I stood there for a moment, unable to move, unsure of what to do next. My mind was spinning, my emotions a tangled mess of hurt, anger, and confusion. I wanted to scream at her, to make her understand the gravity of what she had done, but it felt pointless. The damage was already done. "Why?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper now. "Why him? Why not talk to me? Why did you feel like you had to go outside our marriage?" She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Because I felt empty," she said, her voice raw. "I felt like I was losing myself, and I didn't know how to fix it. David gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time, attention, affection, something I thought I was missing. And I know that doesn't justify it. I know it doesn't." I shook my head, still processing everything. The betrayal stung worse than I had ever imagined, and in that moment, I knew there was no going back. No matter how much she apologized, no matter how many tears she shed, it didn't change the fact that she had crossed a line I couldn't easily forget. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said quietly, the weight of the words sinking in. "I don't know if I even want to try." And with that, I turned away from her, the finality of the moment echoing in my mind as I walked out of the room. I didn't know where I was going or what I was supposed to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed. The days following that confrontation felt like a blur. I went through the motions of daily life, but nothing felt the same. I was constantly battling a storm of emotions, anger, disbelief, hurt, but mostly an overwhelming sense of loss. I had trusted Sarah with everything, and now that trust was shattered. My mind replayed every moment, every word, every look, trying to make sense of how everything had unraveled so quickly. Sarah, for her part, seemed to be in a state of constant guilt. She tried to talk to me, tried to explain herself, but every time she opened her mouth, I found myself pulling away. How could I listen to her? How could I hear her apologize when the damage was so deep? Her words felt empty, like a hollow attempt to erase the truth that had come to light. One evening, as I sat on the couch, staring at nothing in particular, Sarah sat down beside me. I could feel her eyes on me, her presence a silent plea for reconciliation. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "I've ruined everything, and I don't know how to make it right." I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. I didn't even want her sitting so close to me. It felt wrong, like we were strangers now. The warmth I once felt for her was gone, replaced by a coldness that settled deep in my chest. "You can't fix it," I said quietly. "It's broken. It's all broken, Sarah. There's nothing left to fix." The silence that followed was deafening. She didn't.